South Carolina is on Saturday, Clint. The Dogs hit the road for the first time. Let's break down this matchup. Are you in pain?
Yeah, I'm picturing the screeching.
Already you can hear the screeching in your ear. Let's talk about our offense versus their defense, our defense versus their offense. All of that today on the Locked On Bulldogs podcast. All right, Clint.
Welcome back, y'all. Glad you are here. Locked On Bulldogs. If you're over on YouTube, subscribe, comment. If you're over on audio, follow us wherever it is. It's free, Stitcher, Apple Podcasts. Leave us a comment, leave a rating, and review 5-star. Get in contact with us by emailing us and getting on that Twitter feed. Love to interact with y'all. But today we are talking three things. We are talking general thoughts on South Carolina. We are talking South Carolina against our offense and South Carolina against our defense. We're going to compare and contrast the two units against each other, strengths, weaknesses of what we see going on. Those are the three segments. Cannot wait for it. Daniel, how are you feeling about South Carolina so far in this season as we approach this matchup? Give me your general thoughts on who they are, what you're feeling.
Week one, I was underwhelmed with South Carolina. They played Georgia State, and they did, just to be frank, they did not play well. That game was too close for too long against Georgia State. The South Carolina defense did not perform all that well. And I really expected a bounce back last week. I expected South Carolina to keep that close. I thought they might even win that game against Arkansas, but they were wildly outmatched against Arkansas.
Outgunned everywhere, Daniel.
That was my biggest takeaway, was that when I was looking at those two teams on the field on Saturday, I thought it was basically a Spider-Man meme type of a game where
that's right.
South Carolina and Arkansas might be the same person. Now, they've got different personnel and they kind of go about it in different ways, but I would have put them right there on the exact same level. And Saturday, I think we clearly saw that that was not the case. Ton of respect for Coach Beamer and the things that he's done. I think there's talent on the South Carolina roster.
Of course there is.
But they haven't been particularly good this year. That's my big picture thoughts. And that's probably why the line for this game, Clint, is 24.5.
I think it even opened at 23.5, and people went in and still bet it. And Vegas is like, oh, dang, I got to take this up more.
That's a big line on the road in a Georgia-South Carolina game.
Come back tomorrow for our official prediction of this game. But yeah, general thoughts right away is this. Fool me once, Daniel.
Okay, here we go.
Okay, fool me once. Fool me 882 times with Spencer Rattler, and you're the moron in the room. When you're playing poker and you can't face the dupe or you can't locate the dupe at the table, you're the dupe. Okay?
Uh-oh.
If you can't see Spencer Rattler is not a good quarterback, you're the dupe. People, he's not good. It's just like saying AR-15 has all the talent in the world. A lot of velocity on that ball. A lot of spin.
Boy, he really puts a lot of velo on that.
You're right, but he can't play quarterback. So I don't. Maybe try out for closer. I don't know. Maybe the baseball team over at Florida needs you. That's fine.
Sure.
Spencer Rattler is not a good quarterback. Secondly, there are some talented dudes on this team that do frighten me, not at the quarterback position, but other places. They got some guys. Yeah. And Beamer, I think, is a formidable coach in this league. And that's not me. I do, in fact, like him as a person, but I think he can actually coach. I think his guys want to get behind him. I think they enjoy playing for him, which is saying a lot. And he's got some humility. We might see some gushing over Kirby here again, just like we saw last year.
I don't think you're going to see that. I would love
Beamer's, to see it, though.
I think Beamer's put that to bed.
I think so as well.
If you double down on that, you lose all credibility.
Yeah, you're done. No, so I think generally they're not in the same class. They haven't been in the same class. They won't be in the same class for a little bit longer. However, They got talent. They got dudes. They got some wide receivers. They have some defensive. Now you want to talk about defense, which we're going to in a second. I think they got a couple of players on D that, we might get to some players who got injured and the significance that
Sure.
makes going forward. But just generally, Daniel, this is not a tier that should even frighten Georgia. We need to play our game, and it won't be close.
South Carolina is not in the right tier.
No.
In the SEC East, there are 4 tiers. There is Georgia.
Yep.
There is Tennessee and Kentucky in some order.
Yep.
There is South Carolina, Florida, and Vanderbilt. And then there's Missouri. That's the bottom tier.
Oh my gosh, Mizzou.
So Florida, South Carolina, that could be a really competitive game. That could be a really interesting game. But yeah, South Carolina doesn't have the guns to be able to hang around in this game. But let's talk more specifically about the units and how they match up. First, let's talk about that South Carolina defense and how they match up against Georgia's offense right after this.
I'll let you know about BetOnline. BetOnline is your sportsbook experts. They do everything that you want as it pertains to sports betting, which is give you lines for games, give you over-unders, give you safe, give you reliable, give you quick, give you access that you need. They are the official sportsbook of Locked On Bulldogs, Locked On Podcast Network. They are where Daniel and I trust to take our cash, bet it on these games. Come back tomorrow. BetOnline is where we're going to make these bets. We're going to make these wagers that we're going to give you. Get your coin in the game, put it down, go to the window, make some bucks on these lines. It's college football. This is the betting. This is Mount Olympus of betting. We're in the midst of it. Get over there right now. Enjoy it. That's BetOnline, your sportsbook experts.
All right, Clint, the Georgia offense against the South Carolina defense. Now, really tough news coming out of Arkansas for South Carolina. 2 defensive starters out for the year, a linebacker and a defensive end, both of which were contributors on this defense, both of which were starters on this defense. Both out for the year with an ACL. Which is obviously it's that you hate to see that anytime. What are your thoughts about South Carolina's defense, specifically how they might try to match up against this Georgia offense and how Georgia might try to attack them?
Look, here's the deal. This is the bummer with a defense going up against Georgia is you try to get Stet off his mark. We've talked about this several times. When Stet is running, what we want him to do is tuck it and go. We don't want him throwing on the run. Now, there's been a couple of times that Stet has gone ahead and just planted his foot in the ground, turned around, spun, changed direction, made a play as if from nowhere. And it's been quite impressive. And he's settled in a new pocket. He's redistributed the pocket to another location. He's set it up, and he's gotten out there and he's slung it around. Now, what's bad for South Carolina is I don't think they're going to have the pass rushers, Daniel, to go ahead and try to make that pocket relocated.
I don't think so either.
That's going to be a major issue for them. Because when Stet has time, and we've seen this in Todd Monken's system, when you have Stet and Todd together, they will pick you apart. They will carve you up. That's, I think, honestly, everything about this defense. We can go elsewhere. We can try to say they're DBs, they're linebackers, or whatnot, but it doesn't matter because we are now a pass-first offense, which all RBU lovers out there, please rejoice with us.
They won't. It doesn't matter.
I know.
People will never be happy about anything.
That's true. They won't.
Just look at the comments from last year as we were winning the national championship. People will never be happy about it.
Never be happy. But it doesn't matter. We can diagnose all the other levels. They don't have a pass rush. They don't have defensive linemen or edge guys that are going to collapse the pocket, make Stet uncomfortable. And if that doesn't happen, Todd Monken has all day. He has everything at his disposal, and Stet can go ahead and read and diagnose. It's a recipe for disaster, Daniel. That's where it begins and ends for me.
It is a tricky matchup, right? Like, and again, you'd like these matchups if we're almost trying to create intrigue here where there's not any. But just bear with me, Georgia fans. It's an interesting as an offense. Do you try to do what you do well, or do you try to do what the other team struggles to defend? Because Let me tell you about a team that cannot stop the run, Clint. Their name is South Carolina, okay? This is before the injuries. They gave up 3 bills to Arkansas on the ground.
I'm sorry.
295, Clint.
Okay.
295.
I know Sam wants to do that. He's good at creating run game. I get that.
They are one of the better rushing attacks in the country. They have a quarterback who actually can run because he actually can throw. Also,
that's the difference.
It's interesting. So they can absolutely pop you in the mouth. That's fine. The week before, Clint, they gave up 200 yards rushing to Georgia State.
I'm sorry.
So that's way worse than giving up 300 yards rushing to Arkansas. 200 yards rushing. Now, Georgia State is not a bad team. Georgia's sports fans will know that Georgia State has been on a decent little run here in the last several years. But and far be it for me to say that, I mean, they did beat Georgia State, which not everyone can say that they beat the Sun Belt teams that are on their schedule.
Oh, no.
So, okay. But if you give up 200 yards rushing to Georgia State, you're a really bad SEC run defense.
Yeah.
But does Georgia try to exploit that? That's the question, Clint. Because I don't know that South Carolina's secondary is really all that good, but they just have.
They might be better.
They've just gone up against teams that want to run the ball. Does Georgia come out and try to run the ball? Or does Georgia come out and try to do what they do? I think that will be an interesting thing to watch.
Yeah.
Because the assumption might be this team really sucks against the run, and so we're going to try to run it down their throat. But I think if you're Kirby Smart, you just say, what are we really good at? And let's see if they can stop that first. And then we'll get to the other thing.
That's on defense, Daniel. We'll talk about this. On defense, that's what you do against the offense. You neutralize their best player, right? And you could say we're stout against the run, which Kirby always emphasizes. You win and lose in the trenches, according to Kirby's. Okay. On defense, you do that. On offense, you play your game. You mandate the defense changes to you. That's what you typically do. Now, it is going to be interesting because Kendall Milton, if he is getting healthy and continues to
as
do
he
so,
is.
as he is, that might be a little bit of a game changer, Daniel. Because so far, I think that's what's really, really inhibiting our offensive rush attack from doing what we want to do. Okay. Again, we know what Kenny is in this offense. We know exactly what it is. Branson is still coming along. But you tell me Dejon Edwards, which, by the way, he, again, talk about dude. Absolute dude. But you add Kendall to that mix, a healthy Kendall, and this offense now has a different rushing attack. Difference maker.
To me, the only thing, and we haven't really gone in depth about this. I know you got to try to nitpick something. To me, the only thing stopping Georgia's rushing attack is Georgia not committing, like not running the ball. Like nobody's getting into a lather. No offensive linemen are really able to fire off the ball and break down the defense. That's what Kirby used to do, is just break the will of the other team by running Nick Chubb at him 200 times a game. But we're not doing that, and we're not going to do that in this game either. So let's talk about. Let's shift our focus now and talk about the South Carolina offense and how Georgia's defense matches up. So, Clint, Spencer Rattler. Have you heard of him?
I've heard of him.
He's the guy.
Okay. You know, I was told that what To'o was to Alabama last year, Spencer Rattler is going to be to South Carolina this year. Daniel.
Okay. Let me jump out ahead of this and acknowledge for the people.
Okay.
Spencer Rattler is 700 times better than anyone who played quarterback at South Carolina last year. By 5 million miles, he's better than any South Carolina quarterback they had last year.
Well, because he doesn't have TA duties in the graduate assistant program.
So let it be said, it was a good get for South Carolina.
Yes.
It was a significant upgrade for their roster. And Spencer Rattler does have things that he does really well. Okay? One of them is scramble around and make plays.
Yes, sir.
Another one of them is throw that ball deep. Shoot it out of the T-shirt cannon and get it into the upper deck. That's what Spencer Rattler does really well. What you do not want Spencer Rattler doing, from my experience watching him at South Carolina and before that at Oklahoma, what you do not want Spencer Rattler doing is trying to methodically move your team down the field. You do not want Spencer Rattler trying to convert third downs for you. You do not want Spencer Rattler playing the intermediate passing game.
It's not a strength.
He's going to struggle and he's going to throw it to the other team.
See, this is the problem. So accuracy, in rhythm, in phase, the phrase you hear all the time in football, ahead of the chains, that's not what Spencer's going to do for you. He's not that type of quarterback. And truth be told, they don't have receivers that are going to bail him out when he can't do that. That's the other problem with this team. So there's three major issues. Yes, it's Spencer. He's not as bad as Bo Nix. Don't confuse the two. Okay, Bo Nix doesn't know how to comprehend a passing tree. Okay,
Bo Nix lit up Eastern Washington last weekend.
100%. So
I'm sorry, I'm just saying that out loud. By the way, we still have Oregon fans in the comments, and kudos to you, Oregon fans. Kudos to you.
We didn't think we'd ever see you again, and
here you are.
You treated us to your toenail fungus. Just keep on coming back time and time again.
Meanwhile, Scully ready.
No, pin drop. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
So that's problem number one. Spencer Rattler is not the same as Bo Nix, but he does not possess accuracy. That's his problem. He does not possess. He can conceptually, I think he can do it, and spin rate, he can do that again. Launching it down the field again. That's problem one. Problem two, they don't have the wide receivers, Daniel. They
have weapons at wide receiver. They have guys at wide receiver, but they don't have any do-it-yourself guys at wide receiver. You know what I'm trying to say? Like, they have guys at wide receiver, and their wide receivers are going to end up, if you look at the stat sheet at the end of the year, they're going to end up looking really good, because when you catch 70-yard bombs, that's real good for your – and if you play with Spencer Rattler, you're going to catch some 70-yard bombs. Georgia is going to need, on the back end – you talk about young safeties yesterday on the podcast. Georgia's going to need to be disciplined in terms of their deep coverage. Georgia's going to need to make sure that they have that back third covered, because South Carolina is going to want to take big shots.
100%. Now, running game and offensive line, again, they don't have the same caliber of dudes. South Carolina does more skill positions well than they do power run game or anything like that. And it's not Appalachian State where they go ahead and had a system in place to let running backs be fed often and get yards. That's not what they're about. So our defense matches up well. We can out athletic them all day long. We can push them around. And the same thing on their with who we have in pops at linebacker and at the edge and all. It just, they don't do it. Accuracy is going to be a huge problem for Spencer Rattler, because if he's missing, you talk about Lassiter and Keely Ringo, they are pressing so tight against these receivers, Daniel, that an errant, inaccurate throw is not going to be an incompletion. It's going to be a pick six. We have those type of players. So I don't think they match up well. They don't have any way to exploit. They can't methodically go down the field. They're going to have to take shots. So look out for that. Look out for quick screen games. Look out for a little misdirection, and look for the big shots. First down, second down and long. They're going to try to take the shots down the field.
You cannot run. First of all, you cannot run the quick screen game against Kirby. I know you know that, but just it's so ineffective. You can't do it. I get why teams want to do it, and I get why South Carolina's going to want to do it, because if there is a massively glaring weakness on this South Carolina offense, it is not Spencer Rattler.
No.
It is the offensive line.
Yep.
This offensive line, you said not a strength. That's the kindest thing that I've ever heard.
I'm trying really hard, Daniel.
It's a colossal weakness. They gave up 6 sacks to Arkansas. And Spencer Rattler was running for his life the rest of the time. Those 6 sacks those 6 sacks represent a fraction of the pressure that he felt. They got home 6 times. I think Michael Williams and Jalen Carter potentially going to have a massive impact on this game.
See, but when I say screen game, I think so far what people are afraid of, what we've seen in 2 games against this defense, short, quick decisions, short out routes, short tunnel.
Well, I don't know if you know this. Georgia only has 1 sack on the year. They're terrible.
I'm well aware. Aware of our lack of pressure, our lack of skill and development on the edge, and getting a push in the pocket. We can't do it. It's nowhere. Kirby's a defensive guru with 1 sack. My gosh. Hey, box score idiots. Get out.
Watch football.
Please watch the game.
Watch football.
Get off ESPN and please watch football.
That's a start. You go on YouTube, watch any of the games from last Saturday. Just go watch.
They're all there for you.
Yeah.
Please. Okay. That does it for our offensive and defensive previews on both sides of the ball against the other unit for South Carolina. Come back tomorrow where we have our official game prediction as well as other games throughout the nation. This has been Locked On Bulldogs here on Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. We will see you guys tomorrow.
See ya.